Even though I've done a compression test on this engine and found out the cylinders are all within 4% of each other, which is remarkably good, you can do a compression test, and if you found out that there is a problem with your engine, that there's one cylinder low, and you really want to find out what the problem is, then you really should use one of these. It's called a leak down tester. Now this is not the top of the tree. I've already broke this gauge because I thought it was going to be a high pressure tester, and it's actually a low pressure tester. It's a cheap one, but all I need to do is get another £100 gauge and put it onto here. Big deal, but that's what you get your money for. That's why snap-on ones are a lot better. Now, how does it work? Well, what we've done is, if you can see down here, I've used my compression tester adapter that goes into the block, and just simply adapted this to fit together to this thing. Now, these are really made for petrol engines, but it doesn't really matter as long as you've got all the adapters and the gizmos to go into the block, you're okay. Now, what it's going to do, in effect, is put shop air in at 100 psi into your cylinder. So where do you want to have the cylinder placed? Well, let's have a look. Let's take the camera off just for a second and let's see if we can see down here. This little sharp point here on these 2.5s is actually the marking for top dead centre, and if you can see very carefully down here, it says TDC. So the piston's right at the top of its stroke, and both valves are closed. Now what I do is I lock the engine so it still doesn't turn anymore, because I mean, if you're a couple of degrees out on that mark and you put compressed air in it, the piston's going to shoot down because it's gone over its centre, if you see what I mean. The piston's gone just like that and it's going to come down and the engine's going to turn. So what I do is I put the transmission brake on, put it into gear, and make sure that engine's not going to move. So even if the engine, you know, the piston's a quarter of an inch down the bore, when you put your compressed air on, it's still going to stay the same, and the actual event is going to get the same results, if you see what I mean. So what we're going to do is we're going to put compressed air at 100 psi into the cylinder with both valves closed and the piston as high to the top of the cylinder as possible. Now this is a really good test, and as I said before, they're usually used for petrol engines, but you can use them on diesel engines if you've got the adapters. So what we're going to do, by putting air into a cylinder, we're going to listen and observe where the air is going. Quite clever. So if, for example, it's an intake valve burnt out here, well, we'll be able to hear the air coming through here. If it's an exhaust valve, well, we can hear the air coming out the exhaust. I'm going to show you a really easy way to find that out. But also, if piston rings have gone, or they're showing signs of wear, you'll be able to hear the air escaping through the crankcases, and that's why I've taken off the rocker cover, right? So I don't know if you could hear this. I don't know if this camera's going to pick it up, but I'm just going to clip the shop air onto it on my broken gauge. Where's it leaking? Oh, this bloody thing is leaking. Wait a minute. There we go. Told you it was cheap, didn't I? Now, can you hear? There is a little bit of air passing through that cylinder. Now, as I told you before, how can you tell if it's leaking through the intake? You get one of these rubber gloves. I don't wear gloves, but this is what it's good for. A glove over the intake and nip it up tight. If the glove doesn't inflate, it's not coming through there. You do exactly the same thing on the exhaust. Now, I've already tested it before it was raining. It's not coming through the exhaust, but I'm not sure if you can hear that correctly. So what I'm going to do, I've got my mechanic's stethoscope here, but I've changed it to this. It looks like a dialect thing. You remember Doctor Who? Well, this is to pick up sound, you know, so you got this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fold these ends together and I'm going to hope that you can pick up here. Probably you can't hear it, but it's actually leaking. Ah damn, let me see if I can move this camera a bit further forward. Wait a minute. I can't get too close because of the bumper. Wait a minute. Now I don't think you can pick it up. Bloody cars going by. I don't know if you can pick that up. So what I'm trying to say is there is a little bit of blow by on the piston rings, but it's not the end of the world. You're always going to get it, so nothing to worry about. The reason why we have a leak down differential here is if you had the same gauge on here, and if air was leaking out of here and this one's fixed, so say for example this is 100 psi and you were losing 90, you would have a 10% leak down. Alright, that's the easiest way I can explain it. But this is a cheap set. Look, it's gone the needle's gone bonkers, because this is only supposed to be tested at 12 psi. When you test these cheap kits at 12 psi, it's a waste of time. You need 100 psi to get through cylinders. So I'm not going to do all the cylinders. I just wanted to show you that that's an option how to find problems with piston rings, exhaust valves, intake valves, and most importantly head gaskets, because over here if we've got a problem with the head gasket, we take the cap off and we have a look inside. There's no bubbles, right? If you saw bubbles, your head gasket's gone or on its way out. It's a quick and easy test. Compression testers, good, but they'll only tell you the compression, but they won't tell you what the fault is. See? Right, I hope you like that. If you got any questions, let me know. Again, it's just about to start raining again for the 15th time today. I'm going to box this up and then we're going to do a test on the output of these injector pipes, because I think this is where the problem is.